What is Bitcoin? The first result when I typed in Bitcoin definition, Bitcoin is a type of digital currency in which a record of transactions is maintained and new units of currencies are generated by the computational solution of mathematical problems and which operates independently of a central bank. How many of you actually understood what that meant? This is why I think a lot of people don't know what Bitcoin is, because there's so many different definitions of it. And even someone like me, if I were to read that, what does that even mean? So I wanted to take this time to explain to you in the easiest way what Bitcoin is. Before I understood Bitcoin, I had to first understand money. And what is money? In simplest terms, money is a medium of exchange. And I know some people bring up bartering system and how that was the first earliest form of money, which yes, it's true, but not exactly. Let's say I have chickens and they produce eggs, and you make bread. I want some of the bread, you want some of the eggs. We can barter it. Now, if I take my eggs and I want to buy a rocking chair, and he doesn't want eggs, but I want the rocking chair, it doesn't make sense for him to take on the same amount of value of eggs for his rocking chair. He would have hundreds of eggs and it's going to perish. And on my side, it doesn't make sense for me to give up so many of my eggs just to have a rocking chair. With bartering system, it just didn't work. So if I want the rocking chair and the other person is selling it to me, we both have to agree on a form of money. This is why money was created. But we couldn't just use anything for money. Everyone had to agree on what the form of money would be. So you would have seashells, beads, metal that serves as a function of money. But the problem of using forms of money like glass beads, seashells, and metal is that it's easy to increase the supply. And when you increase the supply, the value of that money goes down. Again, it goes back to the rarity of the form of money. Think about it like this. Let's say you lived on that island where everyone was using seashells as money, and you just so happen to create a machine that can sift through the sands and collect more seashells for you. So you technically increased the supply of seashells, and anyone who's holding these seashells, the value just went down. That's considered easy money. But what's opposite of easy money is hard money. The harder it is to increase, the harder the money. Hence why gold has been used as a standard for money for thousands of years, because one, gold is very hard to find. And it also takes a lot of energy to mine gold. And on top of that, gold is a very stable element. When people were using seashells as a form of money, other people came and they were using gold instead. And they were thinking to themselves, how come they're not using seashells? Maybe we should use gold. And they understood that gold was actually better money. Okay, you're still with me, right? Because I still have a long ways to go. So now that we all understand that money is this medium of exchange that everyone agrees on, now we can talk about what happened to money. So if you look at your money today compared to money back then, I'm going to show you right here. You see this $10 bill. If you read on the bottom, it says, in gold coin, payable to the bearer on demand. In gold coin, that means if you took this note to the bank, they would give you $10 worth of gold coins. Interesting how we don't have that on our $10 bill today. So what happened? I mentioned earlier how gold has been the standard for money for thousands of years. We're talking about Mesopotamia, Egyptians, ancient China, even America. We were on a gold standard, and that's why our money was so strong. I was reading an article about how people in the 70s were able to buy a house for $30,000. That's not even a down payment. You could fully buy a house for just $30,000. Just look at how much houses cost today. And you could technically say, well, with inflation, that's good, right? Because that means our money is stronger. But actually, it's the opposite. That means our money is weaker. So what happened? How come things are more expensive today? It goes back to easy money. We started to increase the supply of our money. And that's why we have inflation. Everything is so expensive. Now, some people will tell you and reassure you that inflation is good for you. It's good for the economy. And to be completely honest with you, inflation just helps the rich people, not the middle class and not those who are struggling. The assets I'm holding, like houses, appreciates in value. It's more expensive, so that means I can make more money. But that's not fair for people who don't own houses. How are they going to be able to buy a house? Everyone is now seeing the effects of inflation. Even Thanksgiving this year, an entire Thanksgiving meal was double the price compared to last year. We're told that a healthy average inflation rate is around 1 to 3%. This year, the official number is 6%. And bringing it back to easy money this is what happens when you print too much. and the value of the dollar goes down. And it's not just affecting America. This has been affecting other countries for years. So in 2016, Venezuela entered hyperinflation. Their inflation rate reached 274% in 2016, 800% in 2017, 100,000% in 2018. Imagine buying chicken for $100. I'm showing here on the screen, this was tweeted by Michael Saylor. So there's 1.1 billion people in the world who are hurting right now, and they're experiencing double-digit inflation. We only have 6%. Some of these countries, like look at Venezuela, it's over 1,000%. And going back to easy money, everyone has been printing so much, increasing the supply, and so the value goes down. And so this is where I bring in Bitcoin. So what's opposite of easy money? Again, it's hard money. What makes Bitcoin hard money? The supply of Bitcoin does not increase. There's only 21 million units of Bitcoin, period, point blank. There'll never be more Bitcoin. And if anything, because a lot of people lost their keys earlier, there's, I believe, 4 million Bitcoin that just boop, completely gone. Once you lose your keys, it's gone forever. And so actually the supply of Bitcoin is smaller, which drives the value up. Number 2, similar to gold, it takes a lot of energy and work getting Bitcoin. I want to talk about Bitcoin and energy on another video because I already know, I could predict in the comments, people are going to say Bitcoin pollutes, yada, yada, yada. But instead of just reading what the narrative is telling you online, like do your own research, think for yourselves, don't be a sheep. You will learn that Bitcoin actually incentivizes people to be more efficient with their energy. And on top of that, we need to produce more energy. I don't actually understand people who say we need to use less energy. If we want to become interstellar species, we actually need to consume more energy. We need to create more energy, but we need to be smarter about it. We shouldn't be using and exhausting resources that is actually hurting our planet, which I totally agree with that. So again, I'll talk about energy on another video, but let's go back to Bitcoin and how it is a hedge against inflation. Just like I talked about earlier, if you're holding money, your money is actually losing value year over year, and this is a fact. And we see that this year with inflation, it lost 6%. But Bitcoin is actually appreciating in value. Most people today are living paycheck to paycheck, month to month, and I remember what it was like living like that. You're just surviving. You can't make long-term plans. You can't plan for the future because you have to focus on now. And as a result, that's why we have a lot of people who are dealing with anxiety, mental health issues. And if you think about it, most people are not financially literate. Going back to my experience in school, I wish school taught us about financial literacy because that would change everything. Imagine all of us, we would have made better decisions on our finances. We would have been able to save money. And when you have savings, you can plan for the future. But it's interesting how they didn't teach us that. And so a lot of people racked up debt and they're in a really shitty situation. Why do you think Squid Game was trending? Because most people in the world relate to those players because most people have debt, and debt is the antithesis of what Bitcoin is. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. I'm going to try and create a better form of Bitcoin content where it's more digestible. I'm kind of practicing right now, so bear with me, please. But if you're still with me, Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation because, like I said, the supply of Bitcoin is not increasing. It's actually getting smaller, and it's getting harder and harder to mine them and to get them. I know in the past when I was recommending people to buy Bitcoin, I think the price was at like $5,000. People were saying, I can't afford it, Michelle. Why are you recommending something that's so expensive and so volatile? And this is why I get so frustrated with the media and how there's not good education on Bitcoin. It's that you don't need to buy a full coin. You can buy $10 worth of Bitcoin, $1, 50 cents worth it. Because with Bitcoin, you can buy it in smaller units. It's called Satoshi. Satoshi Nakamoto is the creator of Bitcoin. The smaller units of Bitcoin is called Satoshi. There's 100 million Satoshis in one Bitcoin. So you can technically buy $1 worth of Satoshi, $10 worth of Satoshis. You remember being a kid and learning about a piggy bank. You put money in the piggy bank and you just save a little at a time, quarters, tooth fairy money, whatever, it goes in there. And one day, if you have an emergency or you want to buy something, well, you break it and you have money, and you have a lot more money, and it teaches you how to save. So this is where it all leads to. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the best savings technology. Bitcoin incentivizes people to save. In a way, Bitcoin is helping you build generational wealth. It's teaching you about financial literacy, and on top of that, you are truly financially sovereign. What does that mean? Let's just say I live in America. I want to send someone in Thailand $1,000. They would have to have the same bank as me. It's super complicated, and so I'd have to go through Western Union. But Western Union takes a huge fee. And you think to yourself, well, what is that fee covering? They just gave like an arbitrary number and we have to accept it and we have no other choice. Now with Bitcoin, all that other person needs is a wallet. Anyone can open up a wallet. And all I have to do is send Bitcoin to their public wallet and they receive it. And that's it. And usually the transaction fee is like nothing. We put so much of our time and energy into making money. And this money is worth something, right? But every year, if this money is losing value and everything's getting more expensive, people have to get more side jobs just to make ends meet. And they become so busy that they have no personal time for themselves. Because at the end of the day, we're not just economical beings. We are also human beings on this planet. We're not meant to only work. We're meant to live, be alive, be philosophical, be spiritual. But how do you have time for that if you're literally living day to day? You're probably wondering, Michelle, I have no money. How am I supposed to get Bitcoin? Let's just say that I was struggling and living day to day. I would find ways to stack Satoshis. Everyone shops. Even if you don't have a lot of money, you still need to buy things. And this is not sponsored or anything, but I did invest in this company. It's called Lolly. It's very similar to Honey. With Lolly, you shop. You don't get cash back, you get Bitcoin back as reward. So Lolly is actually a great way to passively collect and stack Satoshis while not really changing your spending habits, because you're just changing where you're buying stuff, but you're not actually putting money into buying Bitcoin. You're earning Bitcoin you're earning Bitcoin as a reward. And it stays on their custodial wallet for, I think, up to like 30 days. And then you can move it to your own private wallet if you want, or you could leave it on there. But again, if you truly want to be sovereign, you have to hold your keys. If you don't hold your keys, it's not your coin. And again, I'll probably do another video doing a deep dive about that, but it's just like, I can't just do one video where I explain everything about Bitcoin because it's very overwhelming and I'm still to this day learning so much more about it. And I think that's why it's so exciting, because you never stop learning. Another thing I would do is, it's like the piggy bank thing, a quarter at a time or $1 at a time. Just put it in Satoshi. So there's two places I know of where you can buy Bitcoin and the transaction fee is really low. Strike was created by Jack Mallers, who is an advocate of Bitcoin, and Strike's transaction fee is very low. I think it's like almost 0% in fees. So let's say you just want to allocate $5 a week to Bitcoin, or $10, or $20, or $100, $1, whatever amount. I like to recommend Swan Bitcoin. You just DCA. DCA is dollar cost average. Just DCA it and just set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about going back and buying every week or every month or yada, yada, yada. So remember I mentioned how there's only 21 million Bitcoin in existence? We've mined up to, I think, 18 million. So there's 3 million left. And every few years, there's an event called the halvening where it gets exponentially harder and harder to mine Bitcoin. And the miners who are rewarded in Bitcoin, they earn less. The supply of Bitcoin decreases. If you look on our dollar, it says, "In God we trust" on the back, right? Well, with Bitcoin, it's a trustless protocol. You don't need to trust it, you verify it. I feel like I have so much more to say, but there's just so much. And literally my batteries are about to die. And I'm also thinking about what other things I can talk about. But I hope that you can at least do your research. I'm recommending books like The Bitcoin Standard is an amazing read. You can learn a lot about money and also about Bitcoin and why it's so important. Thank you so much for making it till the end of this video. I know it's a lot to take in. I appreciate it. And I'm going to try my best to create just better content around Bitcoin education, because there's so much misinformation online. And I always want to recommend anything that has helped me in life. And I truly believe, and I know it's a mathematical certainty, that Bitcoin is the best hedge against inflation to protect your purchasing power, because we should be able to understand money. We should be able to have financial literacy. It doesn't matter who we are. We could be a makeup artist, a painter, someone who bakes bread. We should understand how our money works and it shouldn't be so complicated. So I hope I was able to shine some light on this subject that is very touchy, but also very important. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Good luck.